Hey everyone, how's it going? Count Vamps here. I'm here to have a quick chat about the beta. So, you may notice that my mic is front and center here. I'm trying to make sure that I get a really nice audio peak. So, it's here. Also, this video is really more probably listen to it while you're painting or doing the dishes or whatever else you happen to be doing. There won't be much visual information popping up. I may have some a little bit, but you can pretty much listen to this. Okay, so I'm here to talk about a week later, the one-page rules beta. So where are we at here is pretty much what I'm thinking. So first, before we get into this, I'm just going to say, remember this is a beta. They're still working on it. Don't immediately think that this is how it's going to be set in stone. There's room to maneuver, and remember, feedback is important. So just keep that in mind. This video may change because even my original video is a little outdated now, even after a week. So anyway, we're going to actually chat about some of the stuff that they changed, and we're also going to be talking about the specific armies that I've played. So I've played about 12 to 15 games roughly over the last week. So as you can see, here's all my army lists. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So I've got about 12 different armies. They've been played with at least once each. But yeah, so we're just going to take a look at some of the general game stuff as well as some of the army specific rules I want to talk about, because I just want to talk about game feel in general as well. So I think that's important. Marking in general, I was a bit concerned about. I think many people were, because they were afraid the game was going to slow down because of it. And particularly when I looked at it in the beta, there was a lot of dudes who could mark. Now, not so much. There seems to be a pretty good balance between marking and not marking, and most factions seem to have a specialty in marking. So what I mean by that is, for example, Eternal Dynasty has ignore cover, so you mark an enemy and you can remove the mark and you can ignore cover, pretty much. Saurian Starhost has Bane, which allows them to force the person to reroll sixes, because that's what Bane, that's the rule name for it now, Bane. So obviously this is much better, and honestly, having played a good number of games now, you'd think it slows the game down by a lot, but it really actually doesn't. As long as everyone wraps their head around it, I think overall, marking will be fine. That being said, I do think it's going to make it a little bit harder for new players to get into, because it's just an extra step that they've got to try and remember. My kid forgot it a few times, but it's just something that we're gonna have to get used to, I think, as well. I don't think marking is a bad thing. I think overall it'll add some interesting complexity into the game, and I think overall it's a good thing. But I think they went a little bit overboard in the initial release. They seem to have scaled that back a bit now, and I think that's a good thing. So it does make the game slower, though, I will say, but probably maybe at 15% slower at most. So, and I think honestly, if you had two players who were switched on, the extra game time would be negligible. Overall, they've gotten rid of once per game abilities in general, except for, of course, guns that have limited shots. So, some weapons you can take a one-shot sort of hunter-killer missile, that kind of stuff. That's still in there, but there were a few armies that had special abilities that were once per game. They don't have them anymore. They have been replaced by either the old ability that they used to have or a new ability that lets them do something a little bit different. I am actually all for this. I really felt like the Battle Brothers got screwed in this department. They did have some good abilities, but they were once per game, per unit abilities. It just means that you've really got to try and pick the right moment to use them. And if you pick the wrong moment, well, tough tits, basically. So I'm really glad that they got rid of them. That's fantastic, just as a general thing. And also extra marker abilities. So the Lust Disciples, I think I brought up Lust Time. Oh, friggin' hell. I think I brought them up last time, and they got a certain number of tokens each game that they could then use to give a unit fast. They don't have that anymore. They got a new ability. And honestly, the fact that you need to mark things with markers now, I think that's a lot better. So I'm happy that they got rid of any really crazy additional abilities to mark things. There's a few armies that do have a couple extra ways to mark targets, but generally each one only has one mark now, so that's good. So for all those people out there who used to love old Devout at the half-inch range, great news. Relentless is now what Devout was. Devout is the new thing, which I'll cover in the Blessed Sisters section. But the really cool thing about Relentless is that now it's half range, and you get your additional hits. So that does stack with other things, of course. So if you're Relentless and Devout, you get 3 hits. If for some reason you were Relentless and a couple other abilities, you may get 4 hits. We'll talk about that in the Alien Hive section. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And of course, for all those people who loved stacking, Devout and highly Devout and shooty and extra shooty and furious and extra furious and all that kind of stuff, great news. They brought it back. It's called Supreme now, though. So it's, Supremely Devout, Supreme Hive Assault, Supreme whatever. So basically that just means that you get that one extra, so if it's double wounds on a 1, it's double wounds on a 1 and a 2. If it's extra hits on a 6, it's a 5 and a 6. So good news for everyone who thought that was a bad thing that it went. It is back. It's just got a new name. I actually think it's good because I like all the additional extra hits. I like my Grimdark Future to be bloody and preferably on the quicker side, which I think both these things actually do help the game move forward a little bit more, which is nice. Another thing to bring up is that Fast has had a bit of a recurrence. Very Fast is still gone. He's dead skis, but a few more units have Fast now, so that's always good. But no one really has faction-wide Fast anymore. They have their own special little, not exactly everyone has Fast, but which I will actually talk about when we get to High Elves, but Lust Demons also have the same thing. It's just called something slightly different. A couple of the really cool things that I do like, actually, that they've changed in the rules is that some armies get these tokens that they can put next to their own guys, either via just completely destroying an enemy unit, and they get like +1 hit, +1 AP +1 defense, +1 hit for the rest of the game. And Eternal Dynasty has this really cool thing called Vengeance, which I can only see on their warrior units currently, but you can get leaders to give it. And what it does is it gives +1 to hit, +1 AP on all their shots, and their guns don't have AP anymore, basically, but they have an ability, which I'll talk about in the Eternal Dynasty. But that's really cool. I actually really like that sort of little extra ability to get markers when things are achieved. Yeah, that's pretty much how I think each sort of individual thing has sort of come around. Now let's get stuck into some of these army specifics that I have talked about. So let's get the big one out of the way that I sort of alluded to. All once that army abilities are gone. So Night Brothers, for example, they lost Night Heroics, but they gained an ability called Nightborn, and it's Aegis. It's literally just Aegis, but it's called Nightborn. Wolf Brothers have Wolfborn, which is pretty cool. Basically, they can sort of like deploy within 9 inches of their own units. So I think you can sort of, based on what I'm reading, which I could be wrong, sounds like you can kind of daisy chain your units to really spread them out. So that's actually pretty cool. Interesting to see how that would work, but it sounds like it means that they'll be able to deploy sort of up the board, not within 9 inches of an enemy though, so they can't just deploy right in your face, but they can get pretty close. And then of course Blood Brothers have Bloodborne, topical game reference here, and Battle Brothers have Battleborn, another topical game reference, even though not so topical. So that stuff's pretty cool. I'm pretty cool with that. But yeah, High Elf fleets. Let's talk High Elf fleets, because they've had a bit of a change. Some which I agree with, some which I don't, and I also want to talk about Crack because now I've used it a couple times. So let's have a chat about High Elf fleets. Alright, so if you remember, I told you they got Noble Advance. They still have Noble Advance. But instead of moving fast and not being able to do 1 inch of a terrain, which practically made it useless, in my opinion. They now move an inch and a half further and an extra 3 inches of a charge. So they move 7.5 inches and 15 inches on a charge. I don't like this. The reason I don't like it is pretty straightforward. I don't like having to try and figure out half inches. Like, so say I move an extra 1.5 inches, so that's about there. But not all tape measures necessarily have a ton of, like, markers. In fact, some wargaming tape measures only have the full inch movements, because, I mean, who's going to move half an inch, really? And this really doesn't work on centimeters, if you're a centimeter wargamer, because it's like 3.8 centimeters. No, I don't like it. I'm going to actually proffer a solution here. Now, obviously, if One Page Rules watches this and they decide to do it, cool. If they don't, if they think I'm an idiot, also equally as cool. So my thing is with Noble Advances, I reckon that they should either get an extra, they should either have fast for either move, so they move 8 inches, but they can still only charge 12. You know, so they get the extra movement, but they don't get the extra charge range, or the other way around. They can move 6 and shoot and whatever, or they can charge fast charge range, so 16, I think that is. So that's how I'd personally sort of have a go at it. Because I just think that makes it so I don't have to move in to try and figure out 1.5 inches. 3 inches, fine. 15-inch charge range, not a problem. That's super easy, barely an inconvenience. But I don't like 7.5-inch movement. Sorry. Like, it's not so bad for me because my tape measure's got the marks for it. Because these are just, proper, like, workman's tape measures. They are cheap ones, but they are proper ones. So, yeah. But if you're using it, I know for a fact that some wargaming brands do not have the extra marks on them. So, you have to eyeball it. So, I don't like that. But let's talk about crack. So, crack, if you don't remember, is the replacement for rending in high elf fleets. I mean, you can still get guns that rend, but crack's given to all their shard guns. So basically what crack does, you roll a 6, you get AP 1. I still feel like this is a little underpowered. I still think AP 2 would be a fair compromise here, but it's not quite as bad as I thought it was. I played alien hives with my high elf fleets, and I also played against dwarf guilds with my high elf fleets, and they did reasonably well against them, but there was this one point where I jumped my retributors out, who normally just absolutely shred things. 25 shard gun shots into the Carnivore Rex, and I think I dealt 2 points of damage. That being said, the turn after that, I shot up a unit of what are they called? Right. Assault Grunts, and absolutely wiped the floor with them. It wasn't even close. So I think it's just more that the Retributors are just going to have to be used to, attack normal guys, not heavily armored dudes. That being said, overall, High Elf fleets I felt actually played pretty much as well as I always felt they've played. Obviously not quite as nasty, but they did need a little bit of a nerf. But overall, the Revenants still did a really good job. Great job across the board on those guys. My Shifters still did fantastically, which is unsurprising. And I even took a unit of Protectors, which I don't normally like. They did pretty well. Like, they got murdered. They got really badly murdered by the Carno Rex because he shot them 12 times and somehow, I mean, within the rules, he hit 18 of the 12 shots. Yeah, no, that's right, you heard me. He hit 18 of 12 and absolutely wiped them out. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, overall, I think I did like the High Elf fleets, and I don't think the changes are necessarily bad. I really hope that they get rid of Noble Advance. Oh, no, they change Noble Advance. Keep Noble Advance, change the rules slightly, and maybe up Crack. I'd like to see Crack at AP2. But that being said, I'd like to see it at AP2. It doesn't need to be at AP2. Now, that being said, all the abilities that the High Elf fleets get on their leaders are all pretty cool. Hit and run, obviously, is still a big one, which is nice because that seemed to go the way of the dodo for a while there. And I've got this really cool Precision Fighter Orderer on my revenants, and that just gives them +1 to hit. Pretty cool stuff. Obviously, we also get spells, which the spell lists are much, much better. They are, like, they're much more individual to the things, and they sort of build on some of the special army abilities. So, for example, you can get Supremely Noble Advance when you move, for example, which basically just makes it so that they move an extra 3 and charge an extra 6, so they get even more range for that particular turn, which is pretty cool. You get evasive for shooting. You pick an enemy unit, hit it with Surge, which is when you roll a 6, you hit twice. Yes. And then, pretty much basic, furious, whatever you want to call it. And then, of course, you got Crack, Unwieldy, and Shred as well. So, that's pretty cool. I like that kind of stuff. I think that's really quite nifty. The next one I want to talk about, the one I brought up that was a big change, is Blessed Sisters, which I was a little bit nervous about because I thought they got nerfed a little too hard. Well, good news, everyone. Devout is back. As in, it's just back. It's just Devout again. So that's great. And it also is just on attacks. So if you charge your sisters in, it's fine. You know, they still get Devout. And for people who really love Devout, who really, like, just want to make out with Devout, you don't have to be within 12 inches. Yep, you just hit them from range. So, which is fine, because it does mean that Blessed Sisters have a little bit more wiggle room in how they approach situations. Before, they had to sort of get in close. Of course, we still have Purge. Purge ignores regeneration. On a 6, you get an additional wound. All their flamethrowers have Purge. As far as I can tell, nothing else has it in the army. And of course, they've got a nice spell list. Of course, just a couple general attacking spells. They do have an anti-casting thing, so casters, you can cast on a caster, they get -2 to their casting roll, which, that's pretty crazy. And then, of course, you can hit people with Purge. Great stuff. And you can give your sisters Supremely Devout, which, as I've previously stated, just means that you hit on 5s and 6s. So, the double hits are back. So, overall, the reason I want to talk about Blessed Sisters is because I did feel like they got a rather decent nerf. Now I feel like they're back up a bit. I don't think they're quite at the heights they used to be, but they are pretty good. So take that as a win. Yeah, and the support sisters have Relentless, which, as I said earlier, Relentless is now basically Devout. So half range shooting, which is great. I covered that in the Relentless section. All right, let's have a chat about a couple of these other ones. Actually, what I want to talk about is alien hives, because and we're going to talk about human defense forces as sort of like the last major one, and then I might just touch on a couple of the other ones and give them a bit of touch. Alien hives. So alien hives are a bit of a menace in through 3rd edition. They're very good at shooting. They're very good at close combat. Now I'd probably say they're still pretty good at both, but I don't think they're quite as insane as they once were. Their army-wide ability, Hive Assault, is that all their attacks get the warp, the old warp ability. So if you roll a 1, you take 2 wounds instead of 1. Obviously, you can also get Supremely Hive Warrior with a caster. Not too shabby. And of course, they have marks as well. The really cool thing, though, is that they get they can just do a lot of things really well, and you're choking the board with your dead. Funnily enough, though, I will say is that while I thought they were a complete menace in 3rd edition and they were hard to deal with, I've played with them twice, once against the High Elves and once against the Dwarves, and the High Elves rolled them surprisingly well. And the Dwarves gave them a hell of a run for their money, which I was kind of actually shocked about, because I really thought the Dwarves would eat it quite severely, but they did not. Now, that being said, that game did end in a draw, so it wasn't a complete wash for the Alien Hives, but I find these guys really fun to play, honestly, particularly the Carnivo Rex. I gave him a rapid heavy Ravager cannon, which has an ability called Ravage, which is basically Surge, but you triple hit. So when you roll a 6, you get 2 additional hits, which leads to some insane crap. And then he's also got Hive Assault, and if you've got a unit who can give him cast a spell on him, like say the Soul Snatchers I have, and then you give him like Supreme Hive Assault. Oh boy, can that stack a lot of damage real fast. So yeah, I really enjoyed Alien Hives, but I also think that they have been dropped back a little bit from the complete utter menaces they were. Human Defense Force. So I really want to sit down and say, wow, what a great army these guys became after the first couple of balance changes. I can't really say that, sadly. I want to. I do think that they got nerfed a little too hard. So let's talk about their army-wide ability, Hold the Line. Now, I did get a buff. You no longer have to be within 6 to get +1 morale. But that's it. That's all it does. +1 morale. I just don't think that that's that good of an ability. Well, honestly, sorry. I just don't. I find it to be rather lackluster as far as abilities go. Particularly because a lot of the other guards I've got here, like harass, at least harass lets you move after shooting, and everyone in your army gets it, which means you can reposition very effectively in that scenario, you know, which is nice. You know, Prime Brothers get their Aegis save, which is not like miraculously amazing, but it's better than +1 morale. Eternal Dynasty get their Spirit Power, which at half range they get +1 AP. Which I think that's really cool because all their guns don't have AP, but they're all really long range, so sort of getting in that half range, you know. Surrey and Starhost still have Primal on all their attacks, 6, an extra hit. But still, I just look at this and then I go, well, I just find Hold the Line to be extremely underwhelming for what it does. I don't know what I'd change it to be completely honest. But the good news is that their leaders did get an upgrade. They can now take +1 to hit, as one of their things, Precision Shooter Aura, and several of their guys can mark for precise shooting. So that's another +1. So if you've got a leader unit with a weapons team, for example, you know, you give him precision shooting, they're hitting on 4s, then a sniper team or a tank marks the guys for precision shooting, that's a 3+. That's really good on Human Defense Force. So some specific units can get pretty decent stuff. So yeah, I just find that really cool. That's good. I have no problem with that. But yeah, Hold the Line, I don't know. And their spells are pretty good because it's a lot of buffing your own guys' spells. So, you know, and marking enemies and buffing your own guys. I think they do have like one attacking spell, but the idea is you're really meant to let your ground forces do the job, which I'm fine with. And of course, we've still got some pretty decent close combat options here. Ogre robots are still quite nasty little boys, you know, coming in with their big old combat axes and their bashins. So that's quite nice. And also, they get fast. You can give a unit leader fast, which is kind of crazy because you put it on ogres and suddenly their 16-inch charge range is a rather nasty little thing. Tanks, of course, still really super duper customizable. And they do have a special weapon ability that I can't find on any other army. Could be called Destruction. Destruction is rending without the rending. So so what I mean is that when you roll a 6, it's AP4, but there's no ignore regeneration. So that's pretty cool. Some of their guns have it, some of their bigger ones. So yeah, I really like that. Destructive is pretty cool. When I played with them, I played against Sisters, and they didn't do too bad. Like I was happy with how they did, but Sisters did clean them up relatively nicely. But I think Sisters are quite good at that. If you're wondering how we came up with what armies face what, it's just we both picked an army list. You know, we picked a sheet and then we played against each other. And then once we played all of them at each other once, we then sort of varied it out, you know. That's why some of them got a couple extra games, some of them did not. Human Defense Force was one of them. I don't know what I'd change their Hold the Line ability to. I mean, in theory, it's not terrible because at least it's like, well, when they go for a leadership check, they're one better. They do, and I should probably mention, because this is a Human Defense Force thing, they do have no retreat as an ability that they can take, which is basically robot or undead. So that sort of has come back, but only specifically as far as I can tell, for Human Defense Force. I'm just going to sort of quickly go through and the other lists and just say how it felt to sort of play them. Just going to go through these in order as I pick them up. Dwarf Guilds, yeah, these were fun. Yeah, I mean, the way I play them is short-range iron shotguns. I don't take warriors generally. I did have warriors in this one. I wasn't overly enthusiastic about them, to be completely honest. But they did have a railgun, which helped take an APC out and deal some damage to the Rex. So that was cool. Otherwise, yeah, pretty much, just move forward. Thunder has got to ignore cover while shooting. Which most of the dwarves can take. They can either take regeneration or cover before shooting. Their army ability is Sturdy, which is if they're outside of 9-inch range when shot, they get +1 defense, which is actually, I actually like that. I think that's a nifty ability. Also, a lot of their champions now can take Swift Aura, which I am all for. So they don't have spells that increase their charge range anymore like they used to. They now have Swift Auras. That I'm fine with. I always found it kind of annoying just to take it and then maybe not have it work. Specifically for the purpose of just getting my power suits in the close combat. So they get there now. Eternal Dynasty. Yeah, oh man, I love these guys. These guys are brilliant. As I said earlier, Spirit Power. At half range, they get +1 AP. They get Vengeance tokens, so whenever you kill a unit of warriors, or some units can start the game by placing a Vengeance token. Whenever a unit shoots at a Vengeance token, it lasts the whole game. They get +1 to hit, +1 AP. So that is just crazy. It does mean that as you kill their units, they become more dangerous. In fact, I was up against Saurian Starhost, and they ended up... they had a unit of Gators that charged in and murdered a unit of warriors, so they got marked. And then my Onis jumped in and just unleashed absolute hell on them. And also my Onis have Supreme Spirit Power, so they get +2 AP instead of +1. And suddenly every single attack that has no AP is now AP3. I absolutely murked that unit of Gators. The leader got away, but he got away bloodied. So that was really cool. I really like the Onis because of that reason, because they can just kind of jump in at that sort of, 12-inch, 9 to 12-inch range, and then just absolutely unload onto someone with like a whole bunch of AP2 weapons. So, yeah, I really thought that was cool. The other thing that a lot of them have is that they can mark for ignore cover. So you mark a unit, that unit can't get cover, basically, when it's shot at. So that actually insanely makes it very difficult to deal with them. I know you wouldn't think it does, but it actually does. Also, I gave them evasive to melee with their captain, which is just a beautiful little ability. -3 to charge range when you're charging them. So the Gators couldn't actually engage in close combat against these guys, even if they had survived, which he wanted to. He wanted that Gator leader to get in and start punching people, which, considering my guys pretty much were only ranged Onis, that would have been bad for my guys. So that was cool. And then I also took a squad of ninjas, which, with spirit power, because it's on charge as well. Yeah, they were nasty. They were nasty little boys. They ran around the battlefield and just shanked the crap out of a whole bunch of different dudes. So that was great, and you can give them Furious too. So, hey, Saurian Starhost. Yeah, these guys. Well, okay. So let's start with the bad news about these guys. Warriors still suck ass. They are a terrible freaking unit. I don't know what to say about them. Like, only take them if you're going up against the chaffiest of armies, because at that point, I think that's the only way they're going to actually be able to really do anything. I took a bunch of geckos, though. Geckos, even though they don't hit so great, they are quite good. They get that AP4 weapons, so they can do some damage real quick. We also had a Frog Mage, which did a lot of stuff. The magic for the Saurian Starhost is really quite a nice little collection of spells, actually. You've got some really big, nasty hit spells. You've got something that does 12 hits, which a few units have. But you get 2 units with Disintegrate. Disintegrate's pretty cool. If you have Tough 3 or higher, the attacks are AP 3. So that's quite good. And then, of course, you can give some units Supremely Primal, so they get an additional dice on a 5 or a 6. You can give them Guidance, so an extra 6-inch shot range, which we didn't really find was overly great. Because with geckos, you've got the teleport, then you can move, which functionally gives them a 24-inch range already. So, but the big one that my kid used to great effect was Jaguar Blaze, which you pick a model. Yeah, that's right, a model, not a unit. A model within 12, and it takes 4 AP1 hits, which he used to snipe one of my leaders and kill him. Which was pretty friggin' cool, I gotta admit. That was a good little effect. And of course, all the other guys were pretty much they played pretty much as they always have. Primal, I don't know why, but it just seems a little bit better. I'm not sure if it's because the other abilities are now balanced around it to a degree, or the fact that you can give your Saurians Furious on charge now. Oh, like a leader can give a unit Furious, so you put them in a unit of guys, get Furious, charge in, and suddenly you're looking at possible triple hits on every 6. And if you give them Supremely Primal, you're looking at very least a double hit on a 5, and still triple hits on 6s. So, yeah, nasty little guys. But, yeah, I thought they were fun. We also got a Triceratops, which was kind of nice. Yeah, and they had a mark ability, Mark for Bane. So, if you roll a 6, you gotta re-roll it. Hey, Night Brothers. Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's get over the big thing between the first, because this is actually one of the first ones I used on day 1, was my Night Brothers. So, the Night Brothers, obviously, with Nightborn, it's a lot different. But they played mostly the same. That being said, they did have a couple of things that they have changed, of course. The big one is, of course, they haven't changed this, but they're Fearless still. So Nightborn, Aegis, Fearless. Yep. So pretty straightforward. So as far as army abilities go, they haven't really changed much, but their leaders have got a lot of different things. There's really no way to get double Furious anymore. Just Raiders just have Furious across the board. No more ridiculous number of hits on Raider squads, which is fine. Grave Prime Masters get a little bit of extra weapon choices from memory. They also have rapid charge now, so they get that extra charge range, which is nice. I think they get +4 to charge. So basically when they charge, they're fast. Of course, the big one is that they have Mark for Unstoppable. Now, what the hell is that? Because that's a new one. That is actually a new one. Unstoppable. So Unstoppable basically means that you get no negatives or positive modifiers to your dice roll. So, and what I mean by that is your enemy doesn't get any positive or negative. Like, you don't get any negative modifiers. They don't get any positive ones. So you still get positive modifiers. They still get negative modifiers, but they don't get any benefit from you shooting at them. I actually think this is a really cool ability. I like that. I think that's nifty. I like that as a thing because it's just kind of like, yeah, no, that's not how it's gonna work. It's I see you've stacked a whole bunch of negatives onto my guy and have a whole bunch of positives onto your guy. Well, guess what? No. And then so day 1 I played them against I believe it was Dwarves. I didn't really count that game for the Dwarves because the rules have changed so much over there, but so Night Brothers only actually got 1 game of the update, which they played against Robot Legions, who are the next one. So, Robot Legions, I don't think I really have too much to say about these guys. Their units are slightly cheaper. That's one thing I actually noticed. These guys can actually field quite a decent-sized army now, as far as activations go. Obviously, Swift is still a thing, but only with jetpacks, but they changed that a while ago, so that's not new. So, a few of the big changes with Robot Legion is not really their general overall rules. Gorse and Reaper have changed slightly. They got Shred and Fracture. So Shred is pretty much the alien hive ability, but obviously it's not an army-wide ability. So if you roll a 1, you take an additional wound. So that's what Warp actually is. Obviously the faction-wide ability is called something different because it's the faction-wide ability. And then Fracture is, if you roll a 6, it's AP2. So basically what I'd like to see Crack become, Fracture already exists. So, maybe just give him Fracture. Just saying. Guess that doesn't really make the Robot Legions very special anymore, though, does it? And yeah, so and then the other thing is that they've got Supreme Self-Repair, which obviously just makes it so that on a 5 or a 6 you ignore the wound, so it's regeneration without being called regeneration, and hence it cannot be ignored. That being said, you can also, I have a couple Forge Spiders in this army that can give that buff to other people as well. So, including themselves. I mean, they can just go, yeah, I'm supremely self-repair this round. But you can give it to other people. But the big one is the reanimation protocol, which I'm just going to read the rules off here because it's a bit of a word. When a unit where all models have this rule activates, you roll as many dice as the max number of models or wounds it could restore. For each 5, you restore 1 wound. That brings models back. So basically, it is, we'll be back from Warhammer. Yeah, this was this makes them pretty freaking strong. It means that you've got to wipe the units out to really sort of get these dudes out of the game. With that being said, you can't give it to everyone. Sorry. You can only give it to certain units, and generally they're units that have leaders in, and then you're not taking things like Swift and stuff like that. So, yeah. I do think that Reanimation Aura is really cool, but it doesn't really pop up very often. So, but it is a strong ability. If it was with every unit, I'd say the army's busted and they need to rework, but it's only a couple units, but they are pretty powerful units, so, Yeah, the guys who had Reanimation Aura stuck around longer than they probably should have, but I don't think I'd say I won the game because of it. I mean, Robot Legions did win the game, but they won the game because Tri-Scorpions are crazy, and then giving them Reanimation Aura just makes them even crazier. The Knight Brothers did try and pick them off, but they just couldn't get it done. Overall, I didn't think they were too overpowered with the 2 games I played with them, but I also could see how they could be a bit busted. So we'll keep our ears open for that one. Alright, and then finally, I got Dark Elf Raiders here, which we only played with once because they're my partner's army. She only played 1 game. And it was against the High Elves. So the High Elves and the Dark Elves had a bit of a clash. Yeah, I mean, the Dark Elves won that game because my partner seems to just have, I don't know, she has this thing out for me. I can't seem to beat her. She's the only person I've never beaten before. Every single time it just seems to go badly for me. But anyway, harassing, yeah, nothing overly exceptional about that, but they do have Ruinous Frenzy, which is actually a pretty crazy ability. Ruinous Frenzy pops up quite a bit with different units of theirs. Basically, when they kill something, they get a token. It gives them +1 hit, +1 defense for the rest of the game. This can stack up to 3 times. This means you can... It ended up that her witches got 2 tokens, and at that point, they just ran with it because they were suddenly quality 2 and defense 2 the whole entire game, basically. Defense 3. Defense 2 on their succubus leader. And boy, were they hard to sort of dislodge after that point. I mean, we're talking like veteran Space Marine levels, but we're talking a group of 10 witches. I did manage to kill a lot of them eventually, but oh man, they wreck some shit up real good. And then the problem is with trying to deal with them, I'm trying not to have the other armies run away with it as well, because they also have Ruinous Fury, most of them. So yeah, this was a nasty little army that I made for Dark Elf Raiders. But yeah, a lot of their guys, and a lot of their dudes can get Infiltrate, which is basically like super ambush. You can be a one inch away. Their leaders can take that as a thing, just infiltrating. It's the most expensive ability for them, but imagine you look across the table at the Dark Elves and you're like, oh, they've got like 1 unit. and then over the next 3 turns, they're just dropping dudes an inch from your guys' faces. Like, honestly, I reckon taking 3 Dark Lords with 3, with double stack of witches, and I don't know how you beat that. Because I think after a couple rounds, they're going to be absolute menaces. But also, that would make the game a bit boring. But so that being said, they're still not flawless, of course. They've still got mostly high armor. They're still rather squishy. And obviously, with the right units, it really doesn't matter that they get their +3 armor save. Like, a unit of Gators would absolutely wreck a unit of Witches, even with their bonuses, I think. But yeah, overall, I thought they were fun to play. They got the nice little hit-and-run tactics, which actually, when it's on everyone, is actually a really good ability, because it means that you can sort of move a guy out into open field, shoot, and then 3 inches and push them behind a piece of cover that's, like, right nearby. Sometimes, because I play with, with these kind of pieces of terrain, if you're near one of those buildings and you shoot and then you move 3 inches, it's just like, oh, that's it. Not shooting back at that unit this turn unless I maneuver myself really effectively. So, surprisingly, Harass is a much stronger ability than I first thought it was going to be. It's still not game-breaking by any metric. And there we go. That's the armies I played with, and that's my experiences through it. So let's get into the nitty-gritty here. How do I feel about 3.5 now that they've done their little update? I have minimal problems with this system now. Honestly, I really thought that the marking targets thing and all that kind of stuff would just add additional crap that it didn't really need, but honestly, when you're playing it, it really doesn't feel like that much of a big thing. It is annoying that you will need probably at least 1 extra set of markers now. But if you got a 3D printer, print some little things off. Or if you don't have a 3D printer, you can buy little gemstones. Like don't buy actual little gemstones. Just buy little things that look like gemstones. Vamps, I spent $400 on gemstones so I could mark my armies out. Don't do that. That's bad. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the games. My kid enjoyed the game. My partner enjoyed the game, even though she wasn't a big fan of marking, but her army really didn't have much in the way of marking, because I specifically built it so she wouldn't have to worry about it. And yeah, it was good fun. I actually really enjoyed myself playing this, which I was actually surprised about, because I thought I'd have a lot of problems. The first update definitely fixed a lot of things, which is great. Hopefully they keep updating it and just tweaking a few things. Crack AP2, just saying. But that's for my personal elven glory, not so much as an actual thing that I think will happen. Crack is actually not that bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's obviously not as good as Rending, and I do wish it was AP2, but anyway, guys, this will be my last video for a little while on 3.5. I'm going to let it gestate a bit more, so I reckon if we wait about a month, roughly, so a month from release date, so that'll be about 3 weeks from now, roughly. If we wait till then, I'll do a follow-up video, and I'll actually go in and I'll talk about every single army. We'll do a whole entire breakdown of all the armies. That hopefully will be a little bit quicker than this particular video, but I just wanted to talk about some interesting stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you on the next video, and you have a good one. Alright, see yous.